In purchasing power parity terms, in 1980, United States GNP was 10 times the size of China. 1980, maybe just before you were all born or something. 10 times. By 2014, 34 years later, China's GNP had become bigger. That was in purchasing power, PPP terms. But at the same time, even in nominal market terms, in the year 2000, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, United States GNP was 8 times the size of China. Now it's barely 1.5 times larger. And within 10 years, China's GNP will become larger. And so you can see why the next 10 years are very critical for the US-China relationship. And you notice that one of the few things that Joe Biden said after he took office, he said, China is doing very well. China wants to be number one. And he added, it ain't gonna happen on my watch. That's what Joe Biden said. Of course, if he's a one-term president, then it won't happen. But if he's a two-term president, and I hope he's a two-term president because Joe Biden is a much nicer guy than Donald Trump, by the way. Let's hope that Joe Biden stays. We don't want Trump to come back, and I'll explain how Trump might come back later on. So clearly, he thinks it won't happen, and but it's going to happen within 10 years. And so within the next 10 years, it's perfectly rational, logical for the United States to stop the return of China. So that's the first structural force. The first one, everybody talks about. Second one, nobody except me talks about. I can claim intellectual property on this. And this is what I call the fear of the yellow peril. The yellow peril is a fear of the Chinese people or the yellow hordes that the Western people have had since the 13th century when the Mongols almost took over Europe. And I want to emphasize the key point here. You know, when you go for an executive education course like this, you are taught all the rational things, reasonable things, and then you say, hey, people make decisions in life on the basis of reason, but they don't. They also make decisions with emotion. And the Western emotion towards China is a subconscious fear that the West doesn't want to talk about, but it is real. And I can tell you it's real because if you look at Western literature, they've had novels about Fu Manchu, an evil Chinese man. And they've also, and I want you to know a small fact, okay? At the end of the 19th century, which is about 130 years ago, the United States Congress passed a bill called the Chinese Racial Exclusion Act. This is 130 years ago, okay? United States already by then said, no, we don't want too many Chinese in America. And so they tried to stop it. That reflects the yellow peril dimension that exists in the Western imagination. And the third structural force I want to mention, and which explains the bipartisan consensus in the United States against China. As you know, the United States today is a deeply divided country. The Republicans and Democrats cannot agree on anything. Zero, nothing. But they only agree on one thing. Must beat up on China. That's what they agree on. Right? Why? And the reason why, the explanation was given by somebody who's now a senior advisor to President Biden. His name is Kurt Campbell. And in an essay in the magazine Foreign Affairs about a year ago or two, he said that the United States believe that if the United States engaged China, the United States would open up China's economy. And after the United States opens up China's economy, China's political system would then open up, and then China would become a liberal democracy. And after China becomes a liberal democracy, US and China can live happily ever after together in a happy marriage, right? Now, that was the belief that Americans had. And of course, it was a grand illusion. And clearly, as you know, China is not going to become a liberal democracy anytime soon. And therefore, the Americans feel disappointed. And because both Republicans and Democrats feel disappointed, they both agree that this is the time to now stand up to China. So you can see that this US-China geopolitical contest, and this is my first big point, is not being driven by personalities, is being driven by these three structural forces that I mentioned to you already.